Hello Internet and welcome to Historical Headlines for the 13th of December. Taylor Swift gets kicked out of the birthday club. Much drama. So what is this about? Well, it has to do with the fact that the 13th of December is a big birthday club of some of the most significant and distinguished characters throughout history. And I'm just gonna go through all of them now, and then we will go back to the drama eventually as Taylor Swift comes in and once more tries to take over what is not hers. We can start out by Gerson, one of the early chancellors of the University of Paris and one of the leaders of the conciliary movement in the Catholic Church in the early years of the 15th century, and with his colleague Pierre Delis was mostly responsible for the start of the Council of Constance, which resolved the Great Western Schism and presented the last great hope of the Catholic Church to appease or suppress the reforming voices that had formed in its myth, and which, since they unfortunately didn't listen to Gerson and Delis, eventually led to the Reformation 100 years later and the end of Catholic supremacy in Europe and the rest of the world. Moving swiftly on, sitting next to Gerson, a bit down the table on the left side when the cake is preserved, is Henry IV of France, the first member of the Bourbon dynasty, the offshoot of the formerly ruling Anjou dynasty, and the man who finally ended the long, bloody, and depressing wars of religion of the 16th century France that had so martyred the nation for nearly 50 years. Of course, he himself would later become a martyr to the fanatic Catholic Ravaillac, who apparently didn't think he was Catholic enough, but his son Louis XIII, and of course primarily his grandson Louis XIV, inspired by his grandfather, would turn France from what had become a second-ranked nation into the most dominant and primary power of Europe, lasting up until, well, modern day really, with a couple of dips on the way along the long and thorny roads of international politics. Finishing off the left side of the table is Heinrich Heine, one of the leaders of the young German lyrical movement and a poet of some note in the early parts of the 19th century. He was particularly involved in bringing radical democratic thoughts to the German states, allowing the rise of the artistic movement of the 19th century Germany, taking the baton, if you will, from the Austrians as cultural leaders of the German-speaking peoples. He was, for this, of course, in exile in France for several years, but his later influence cannot be underestimated on the German artistic expressions of the 19th century. The other side of the table is filled with North Americans. First is Alvin York, the famous Sergeant York, though he ended up as a colonel in the United States Army. He was the man who won practically every single medal of military bravery for his part in World War I, where one of his heroics was once capturing a German machine gun nest, practically single-handedly killing 25 troops and capturing more than 100. He was one of the greatest American military heroes of the 20th century. Sitting next to him on the right side of the table is Christoffer Plummer and Dick Van Dyke, some of the most beloved actors of the 20th century and some of the last surviving members of the golden age of Hollywood and the resurgence in the 50s and 60s. Altogether, this table is the most elite and uniquely exclusive birthday club that has ever been, gathering this time a year for a great celebration of partying and high-minded philosophical discussions over tea and cake, despite the minor inconvenience that a couple of its members are currently dead. However, there are still people we are missing, because we are missing the people sitting at the end of the table, the guests of honor, the most important members of this most important of birthday clubs. My friends, Anni and Lexi. They were the ones who formed it. They were the ones who created it. They were the ones who turned this noble and humble birthday club into the greatest power behind the political scenes of modern day New World Order Illuminati, and I might have said too much. Nonetheless, Nevertheless, they are the headliners, the main event. Lexi and Annie, happy birthday to both of you, and let's get to the drama. Because on Annie's birthday, the 13th of December in 1989, as the last member of this birthday club, another was born. Taylor Swift, singer, sometime actress, sometime political commentator when she can be bothered, and overall horrifying individual in every respect. The T-Swizzle cunt is the one who tried to take over Annie's position at the end of the table. She was the one who tried to once again take what was not hers. She took a position in the music business that was not supposed to be hers, as no one would be interested in hearing some whiny bint singing about how she manages to screw up her own relationship constantly and then blame her boyfriend. She also tried to take over Annie's rightful chosen one position at the end of the table for the birthday club, but haha, it didn't last. In a extreme expression of truth, justice, and universal karma, Taylor Swift was booted from the birthday club by Annie in the early years of the Great Cupcake War of 2008. And since then, she has been howling in the wilderness, desperately trying to get back into what she considers her rightful, if stolen, position, while the birthday club continues its rise to ever greater glory. That is today's historical headline: how my friend Annie and my friend Lexi and the power of the birthday club booted the T-Swizzler from her vile, inhuman, and despicable attempts to take what was not hers. I will be back tomorrow with another historical headline. Until then, I have been the Sage, and I wish you all a very happy day.